Hello, everybody. Hello. We have the misfortune of going between your lunch and coming right after Shola. So I think this is going to be a very interesting session. Hopefully, it'll be valuable for everybody. We'll get the rest of the panel to come up and we'll get started. Ibrahima, would you like to kick us off? All right. One more, right?
Can you guys hear me? Oh, it's a little loud. Hope you guys had a good lunch. It seems like we're still sleepy here. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ibrahima. I'm part of the organizing team and coordinating this wonderful panel on open banking and AI. Before we kick off, let me give you a little context. For sure, as Africa youth population grows today, there is an increasing tech solution that facilitates financial transaction from mobile devices. Emerging technology, particularly artificial intelligence, are revolutionizing financial services by enabling real-time data analysis, uncovering insights and creating efficiency that enhance customer experiences. This panel that I have the pleasure to coordinate for a couple of days now will talk about, explore how traditional bank and fintech companies are leveraging AI and other technology to meet evolving customers' needs, personalize services, and innovate in the digital banking space. And with further notice, allow me to give the mic to Proud, so maybe he can set the stage to the panelists to introduce themselves. Then we go from there.
Thank you, and thank you for setting this all up. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with some of the best innovators anywhere who have been thinking about this or working within open banking, AI, and trying to push emerging technologies to deliver on behalf of customers everywhere across the continent. I won't spend too much time introducing the panel itself because I think it's pretty clear, and I think the content that we'll cover will probably be far more useful than a quick summary at the beginning. However, I'm just going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and give a little context on where they're from, as well as what they're hoping to learn during this session. I will start. My name is Proud, that's Proud Dzambukira. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I don't know if there are any Zimbabweans in the room. Mudisei. There's always a few of us somewhere, everywhere. And I lead product. I'm the head of product at Watu, where I'm helping build consumer-facing apps for Watu, which is an asset financing company. Before I joined Watu, I spent quite a bit of time working on building media tech, as well as on strategic platform partnerships for Meta and Facebook. So with that, I'm here to learn. This is my first full year in Kenya. And before I moved to Kenya, I did not really work in fintech. I was mostly an enabler, as well as being in media tech. So I'm still learning, and what I aim to get out of this session is more knowledge. Dolapo, we'll start with you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dolak Bagbaje. I'm an investment director at Apis Partners. Apis Partners is a growth stage private equity firm investing at the intersection of financial services and technology. We manage over $1.5 billion in assets, and we invest globally. We have done a fair number of investments into Africa over the past let's call it decade, and are investors in businesses like Time Bank in South Africa, DPO that was headquartered and operates out of Kenya, Greenlight Planet, and many more. Looking forward to the discussion this afternoon.
Maybe I did, okay. Hi, good afternoon already. I'm Jiba Jallo. I'm the Senior FinTech Advisor for EcoBank at the group level. So for the ones who don't know EcoBank, we are a Pan-African bank with presence in 36 countries across Africa and a representative office in Dubai, Paris, London, and Beijing. We have 13,000 employees across the continent and out of the continent, and close to 40 million customers across. My role within the bank is to set up the strategy to make it easy to any company that would like to leverage on the EcoBank services to better serve their customers. So I'm working with fintechs and making sure that they have the right level of support to be able to innovate and serve their own customers. My objective, same here, is to learn and to also share the experiences that we've been having at EcoBank. And yeah, hopefully I think that would be a very good session. Thank you.
Just one moment. I think before you continue, since I'm coordinating, I'm going to leave actually the seat because it's very important to, have another person here to share some of the experiences about this topic. Then I will come back and, close with some remark to make sure that, all the partners are well represented actually in this panel. If you can join me here.
And you win introducing yourself for being late.
Thank you, Prod. Good afternoon. My name is Frank Mola. I'm with MDP. Really excited to be here. Thank you.
All right, a very good afternoon. My name is Peter Kawumi. I'm the Regional Managing Director with InterSwitch. My colleague was here earlier, so I won't speak too much about InterSwitch, but just to say our operations out of Kenya and Uganda serve all the East Africa community countries. Very excited to be here, particularly to learn about what others are doing in, with regards to these emerging technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arthur Mukembo. I lead Future Lab at the Innovation Village. Innovation Village is essentially passionate about convening and empowering ecosystems in technology, research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in Africa. And through these communities, how do we empower impactful solutions, products, and ventures that are coming out of these to really reach that last mile? And how do we connect them to the appropriate capital that they need at different stages within their life cycle of growth? For today's conversation, we're very passionate about empowering and equipping that last mile user. I was really encouraged to hear about smallholder farmers earlier. And so how do we together innovate new distribution channels to get that to that last mile user? Really looking forward to that.
Amazing. I think we're all here to learn, so hopefully this will be a very fruitful session for us on stage and for everyone here listening. So to kick off, a couple of years ago, somebody said something to me. I was listening to two people argue, and they said things that were opposing each other that I thought were very interesting. The first person was arguing for a focus on fundamental technology for fundamental problems. And then the opposing perspective was that we need to invest more in frontier technologies to address frontier challenges. I find that that's one of the challenges when working in a space where you're expected to innovate. I would like to get a reaction from the panel on that, those two opposing statements, as well as there's a quote from Forbes: by 2020, banks will be invisible, connected, insight-driven, and purposeful. So I guess I want to start off the conversation by focusing on open banking specifically and how Frank, I'll start with you. Your reaction to that statement, as well as just setting the stage on how building payment integrations across the entire continent has helped start to address that open banking challenge.
Thank you, Prod. I think there's something you talked about, the one for Forbes 2020, predicting the future. I always say just before COVID, all of us had strategies, right? But we didn't know what was coming ahead. And then COVID happened and we had to change that. So as we look at many years ahead, we need to reduce our strategy, not to be 5, 10, 15 years, but break it down to 2 years, so that you're able to see where the future lies. But let's come back to MDP as payment enablers, and specifically speaking to Africa. You see, I always say we're in the business of trust, right? We're not in the business of technology. If you need a technology or a platform, you're going to get it anywhere. So we're in the business of trust. That's number one. Number two, as a payment enabler, for us, market context is very important. I'll give you an example. So South Africa, they have over 50, 60 million cards, right? These are plastics. In Kenya, we talk about over 50, 60 million M-Pesa users, right? If you go to Nigeria, the conversation is a bit different. And I was talking to my friend yesterday, Charles, and Charles is telling me, Nigeria, they do not innovate for the sake of innovation. They innovate for the sake of trust. Instant payment happening in Nigeria is not about technology. It's about how safe is my money and can I get it real time, right? So for us as a payment enabler, what we've come to appreciate is, number one, it's about trust. Number two, is about listening to what the market is saying. It's about listening to what the consumers are speaking about. And then in that, you're able to contextualize when you're enabling. I mean, quickly as I summarize, in this room, how many of you have phones? It's an obvious question, but how many of you have phones? I'll not say iPhones. I know iPhone guys, they always like being put. But as an example again, how many of you have cards? Credit cards, debit cards. So it's almost the same number of people. But every time we want to talk about technology and every time we want to talk about enabling, we forget that the first thing we need to do is listen to the consumer. The mobile that you have, we do mobile apps, for example, but we just can't come and say, we are going to put this and this is what you want you to do. It's not off the shelf. So from an African perspective, when we think about payment enablers, for us, number one thing is listen, 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 listen. And number two, as a payment enabler, we leverage on trust more than anything else. Thank you.
Prod, if I may. Yes. So there is no doubt that when you think of the future of not just banking, financial services in general, you have to consider things like more connectedness, more data-driven, more insights-driven. There's no doubt about that, okay? But we've been working on the African continent for over 20 years. And one thing really stands out, and I like what Frank said. Africa is not Silicon Valley. Africa is not Asia, okay? We have to make sure that all of the things that we're thinking about in terms of the future of financial services actually relates to the context of Africa. Now, what do I mean here? So we know that there's this evolution that's happening. Yes, we had traditional banking services. It's evolved largely driven by mobile money, M-Pesa-like services. What the future of Africa will be is not, at least in the next few years, and certainly not by 2030, as Forbes says, it's not going to be, I think the word they used was invisible. What I took from that was they're saying no branches, potentially no agents, no physical touch points. Now, His Excellency was earlier speaking about the progress that the continent has made in terms of financial services in general, again, largely driven by mobile money. What he did say, however, was we still have a lot to do in terms of financial and digital literacy. Now, if you think about our parents, if you think about many of the people that still live and work in the continent of Africa, they cannot yet do without physical touch points. So when I hear about the Forbes prediction, I think it's 50-50. We will certainly see more financial service players leverage data, be more insight-driven, but I feel there will be a balance with making it Africa context ready.
Great. Just to follow up on that, Jiba, you work for a company that is pretty innovative, but there's a pretty strong physical footprint as well. Any thoughts about first his input, as well as what you guys are working on to pioneer and drive more open banking from the perspective of your bank?
I think what I want to take from what Frank said and what he said was that the fact that we are not listening enough and we are not contextualizing enough. I'm actually glad that my bosses are not in the room because I really think that one thing that banks failed on is that we did copy-paste. We took whatever was in the Western world and tried to put it in Africa without taking into consideration the fact that things are different, or the populations are different, the context is different. And that's how I believe we end up having populations that are more keen to adopt fintech/MNO solution rather than going to banks, I believe, right? And I think it's a thinking that we are having more and more within EcoBank. So the story behind the department that I'm running, which is the fintech one, is that when EcoBank realized that the fintech adoption was really rising, we had the choice of either considering fintechs as competitors or partners. And because we are Pan-African and we understand that the context is different, we decided to become an open banking in such a way that it's easy for fintechs to partner with us, and then for them to go to the last frontier, like the population that we don't necessarily have access to. So we started with a competition that we launched in 2017. That was the first step, to invite fintechs to come with innovative solutions and see how we could partner together. So today we are the 7th edition of the competition, and we have overall close to 8,000 fintechs that applied, and 60 of them that we consider are fellows because they went until the final stage of the competition. We try to partner with them as much as possible. They are all looking for money. We have the money, but we are not going to give it to them because we don't know how to do it yet, even though we are learning. But what we make sure about is that we give them exposure to investors, to accelerators for them to grow their business while we work with them. And one of the big strengths that we have as EcoBank is because we have that very big geographical presence, is every time they want to go beyond the country where they started, we want to be their partner to facilitate that. And then we went beyond. We have a big set of digital solutions that we are offering to our own customers. So we say, why don't we open those digital solutions to fintechs so that they can serve their customers? So coming back to that sentence of bank being invisible, I think we are almost there already, at least as EcoBank. So let me give you a concrete example of what we did. So there's a company here in Kenya, and I'm glad that I'm talking about that in Kenya, because it's the first time that we've been doing that. That company is called Fingo. It's a kind of neobank. So they are enabling customers to open their bank account within a few minutes digitally without going to a branch. So what the customer don't know is that when they see Fingo, they see by EcoBank, a small one, but all the back-end platform is actually EcoBank. What we did with Fingo is that through the sandbox that we publish, we open, where we are publishing all our APIs, enabling payment, collection, remittance, banking opening, bank account opening. We gave them access to those APIs. They did the connection. It took us 2 years to convince the central bank, but eventually we got there. And now, every time a customer is using Fingo as a platform, they don't necessarily know, but it's EcoBank actually that is running behind. So that speaks to the fact that we are almost invisible. So many fintechs that are now operating in Africa, people are using their solution without necessarily knowing that there's a bank behind, right? And it's important because as fintechs, they are startups, they are nimble, they go fast, but they don't necessarily have the infrastructure. We exist since the 80s, so we took time to build a robust infrastructure. We have the relationship with the regulators. We have the experience in all those countries. So what we are telling them is, come to us, let's work together, let's integrate. We'll help you go through all the process with the central banks and all the regulatory aspect, and you just go to the customers that are going to be our customers, both you and us. So that's what we are trying to push now in the continent.
Great. Actually going to pass to you, Dolapo, on this because of your, speak about Time Bank a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to disagree slightly with a point that was made earlier, and maybe also put you proud on the spot, right? It was said that because we're in Africa, this comment around that Forbes made around financial services being delivered invisibly is something that may be out of reach due to our current context. I think in the market that we're in today, if I look at a player like Watu, for example, where phones are being sold and on the back of that, financing is being provided, yes, today those two things are separate. And when you go to buy the phone, you agree to buy the phone and then you also get the financing. But what's to say 5 years down the line that all you do as a customer, just as they do in more developed markets, you pay a small daily amount, you get the phone, you get the financing, you get the insurance, all without those things being sold separately. So it'd be interesting to get your take, Proud. The big point is that just because we're in Africa and just because the context and the challenges are different, doesn't mean we're precluded from some of these global trends. For Proud. Yeah.
No comment on whether that's in my roadmap to build out offerings that include all of those services. But it's an interesting point. I think that the kind of push over the edge will probably come from multiple sources. I think the incumbent banks and people that have been in the fintech space for a long time are probably thinking and building the right kinds of things right now. But I don't know who's going to come between now and 2030 and build a solution that will completely change how we think about the world. When I think about moments that change how we do things, I think about 2007 was the year when Steve Jobs came out with the phone. And within a period of 2 to 3 years, the world was completely different. Consumer expectations were completely different because of that one new product. So when I think about, we have 6 more years in Africa, I think that somebody would definitely or could come up with something. And I think that it's some of the activities from people here, specifically you guys, with investing in your open platforms and getting people to build on top of that. Is there any thoughts to bring some of those third parties that use your open platform or your open APIs to offer their services? Yes. I'm asking if you as a bank are thinking of bringing on board, in-house, any of those third-party services that build experiences on top of your open platforms. So I come and build using your APIs, I build a whole bunch of offerings. Do you guys have a department that's looking at who's building and if those people are prime for additional funding or support from the bank formally in order to get them to build faster? I'm thinking about potential sources of additional funding.
Yes, so that's a discussion that I've been having since years now, since I joined EcoBank. Yes, I've been participating to a panel yesterday, and I was saying that every time a startup or an entrepreneur starts a business, the first thinking is, okay, I'm looking for money, banks have money, so let me go to banks. So it looks obvious. And we do have money, that's right. And we do provide some level of funding to entrepreneurs for SMEs. And in some countries, we have a focus on startups and fintechs in general. It's the case in Ghana, and it's the case in some other countries. But the reality is that we are not a VC. We don't, it's something that is completely new for us. it's something that we're learning. Okay, we're learning how to better support innovation in the continent and providing the funds that companies are looking for, startups. But because the way we are structured is very different from the VC world, it's something that we have to build. So that's the reason why for now, coming back to the fintech challenge that I was referring about, for the companies that are participating, the price for the winner is a $50,000 check, which is a kind of seed that we're providing to them with no string attached. However, we know that they need more. And that's the reason why we're bringing investors to make sure that they're having this level of exposure with the organization that really know how to support them. And we're having some very good outcome. A few months ago, one of the finalists of the last year edition of the FinTech Challenge was able to raise close to $500,000 with one of our investors. And that's exactly the outcome that we want to have from now until we are better organized and we have the right structure internally to support on the investment side for startups. I hope that responds to your question.
Proud.
Yes, it does.
So the question he asked about the
Yes.
future, what he was responding to you, when I look at it from, contextualizing it, I think the future is here. It's not just evenly distributed in Africa, right? Again, think of Nigeria, and my friend Peter will tell you, contactless is enabled in the cards, but the functionality in terms of infrastructure is not there. But go down to South Africa, contactless is there and everybody's tapping and moving and it's moving, right? If you come to Kenya, maybe it's a different story, maybe it's M-Pesa and all that. So I think the way sometimes we look at it is not that maybe Africa does not want to adopt, but when you look at market and the nuances involving like regulations, cost, infrastructure, connectivity, West Africa, it's more an issue of it's trust. So my card can easily tap, but I don't want to tap. I don't want even QR. But if you go to SA, it's different. So I feel the future is almost here, but sometimes just not evenly distributed, depending with a number of things.
Interesting. I want to segue from that comment to just thinking a little bit more about the broader supporting infrastructure or ecosystem that can allow the distribution of all of that to a broader range of places. And before we came on board, Peter, you said something interesting. You said sustainable interoperability between payment providers. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Okay, thank you very much, Proud. So we've built many things in many countries over the years. Yes, we started by working with the banks to support their journey to interoperability. We started in West Africa. We've done a lot of work in both Eastern and Central Africa. We've then switched that to say, okay, so what is driving financial inclusion? And today, some of our biggest customers and partners are actually fintechs. So you may have heard about our Verve card. Verve is an indigenous card scheme. So it's an African card scheme. Today we've issued about 65 million tokens on the continent. And what it allows our issuing banks is to actually deal, pay, settle, etc. in local currency. So no matter what country you're in, you're dealing in local currencies. If you're in Nigeria, you're in Naira. Uganda, you're dealing in the Uganda shilling. Now that's also taught us very many things. And this led to some of my earlier comments around context. But one of the key things that we've seen most recently is central banks moving towards driving the interoperability agenda by putting in place national switches. Now today, there are 26, maybe 27 initiatives on the continent for national switches, okay? The majority of those are failing, okay? And one thing we have noticed is we've built a lot of expertise, we've built a lot of knowledge in the work that we've done, and we're doing it effectively in the countries where we are. The central banks, yes, they do have a duty and responsibility to drive the interoperability agenda. The one thing that is lacking so far, in my view, is we are not speaking to one another. Okay, so the private sector is doing very many initiatives. Well, we are speaking to one another, but maybe not as effectively as we should. The private sector is running many initiatives. So we're seeing all of these cross-border initiatives. We're seeing all of these interoperability initiatives in domestic cases. And then we have the public sector trying to do the same thing. There must be a framework and an avenue where they effectively speak to one another. I was happy this morning when I saw representatives from the government of Kenya speak to some of these things, all right? We've seen this in very many other countries, but I believe that there is still quite a lot to do. Thank you.
Quick follow-up for you. InterSwitch is a pretty powerful player within this space. What are you guys doing specifically to drive better conversations between the different payment providers or payment platforms? Is there anything that you guys are actually executing to solve that one challenge?
So the easy answer to that would be the technical things that we're doing, but I'll try not to say that. So we engage a lot with regulators in every market that we work. We engage a lot with the associations in every market that we work, because we believe that companies like ours that have been here for a very long time also have the responsibility to drive that agenda. So today we're very active in the fintech association in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Kenya, and what we're trying to do is make sure that the voice of the fintechs is ably heard by the regulators. I think that is a major role that everyone should actually play.
Thank you. Arthur, this goes to you. You're an ecosystem guy, right? Two parts to my question. One is, what are the startups or innovators that you work with looking to get solved for them by some of the more established players like InterSwitch or EcoBank? And then the second part is, and this ties to the broader theme of the panel, is anyone doing interesting stuff with AI?
Thank you very much. There have been many interesting perspectives shared, and so let me try to contextualize that around all of this. At Innovation Village, we are obsessed with understanding and predicting context. And that means you need to collect vast data points and simplify the insights coming out of them. For example, one of our initiatives is working with, say, 176,000 farmers in Uganda across like 10 different value chains, and that in aggregate, we're collecting 300 data points on a typical farmer. At the same time, you're working with 25,000 young people, and you're trying to understand their path to entrepreneurship, more so those ones who are coming from a rural, peri-urban context, who are coming from women-led households, who are coming from contexts that are non-traditional. And that as you start to connect the dots across this, you realize certain opportunities. One of the key opportunities, and to speak to the point Frank mentioned earlier, is I think the future opportunity for banking is around embedded finance. And for you to make embedded finance work is you need to rethink fundamentally your business model as a player. I'd like to challenge any of the financial institutions in here to pick inspiration from how the telecom companies, for example, started this idea of a mobile MNO, mobile virtual network operator. I've forgotten the exact technology, right? Imagine a bank of the future that just provides banking infrastructure as a service. If customers have a trust deficit, can I walk into your branch to change a card, to actually do the account opening, to do a customer inquiry, etc. And that's a service you offer to other banks as well. You don't necessarily have to do that as your own brand, because you have to protect your pedigree. Maybe build a sub-brand around that. One opportunity. Another opportunity could be around simply, I'm just going to provide my APIs. I understand I have some responsibilities from a regulatory context. change the way I monetize them. I'm not relying on deposits and making spread on fixed income or whatever to generate sustainability. Again, sustainable interoperability, right? It's that I'm coming up with entirely new business models. Could I do transactions? Could I do platform as a service? Could I charge you for every transaction when someone interacts with a branch point in my infrastructure, etc.? So to dial it back to how we support startups is that for leaders in the banking sector who are tasked with answering those difficult questions, it's that, come, let's understand your context. Let's understand where the regulator is coming from. So for example, in Uganda, we work with the insurance regulator around rethinking distribution in the insurance sector. We're building very strong partnerships with the national payment systems around that as well. Let's understand your context and where the regulator is coming from. Let's give you both a safe space through sandbox mechanisms to come and test out these business models. And then let's together scout some catalytic innovations. It's that there's Fingo that you mentioned earlier, or any other player in the room who has the ability to do interesting things, but just needs direction. So if I take strategic direction from one of your players, and we build a use case we can experiment on, and that off the learnings from that use case, if we then commit as Bank X or Provider Y to then scale it up, that is how we power innovation. I'd love to have a more detailed conversation around how that can be possible.
I think you should then send them to us, because that's exactly what you're trying to do, right? So I was mentioning Fingo, and we just opened that sandbox, put any APIs that we have there. So as I mentioned, to do collection, payment, remittance, bank account opening, that's exactly the purpose. And the objective of the sandbox is to enable those fintech to do the technical testing, just to make sure that the product that we are offering is the right fit for their need and their customer need, while we have the business discussion and the compliance discussion, knowing that at the end of the day, it's important for them to be successful, because every time their customer are transacting, we have something on it, right? So that's exactly the objective.
And that's a perfectly acceptable evolution of your business model as well. So that's where we see value, and that for us, it's the call to action is bring your rails, bring your pains. Let's kind of figure out a safe way to experiment. And then once those models are showing signs of potential, let's now together build a strategy for go-to-market and scale.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask everyone to share some parting remarks. And in your parting remarks, please do include an answer to this question. 2024 has been the year of generative AI. ChatGPT is a buzzword. Is AI a buzzword when it comes to financial services, or is it a useful tool? In your experience, is it ready? Do you need to wait a little while longer? And how can it power open banking? Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe I should start. I'll just address the question specifically. I think for us within our portfolio, we are seeing some companies that are really embracing AI. To the extent that there's a lot of hype around it now, it is something that a lot of financial service institutions have been using for years. So if I use one of our investments, Time Bank, as an example, areas where they have seen use cases for AI include things like in software development, in credit scoring, and in customer services. And across those various things, the specific use cases can be things like on the coding side, automating tasks, reducing errors. This can save you about 30% in terms of productivity. On the customer service side, augmenting the chatbots that are already widely used today. So with ChatGPT, there's a lot of context that goes into it, since that's a keyword on this panel. I think for the chatbots of the future that leverage AI, it's taking all your transaction history, all your behavior, and responding to your questions in a very personalized way. So in short answer to your question is yes, there are definitely businesses that are using it today within financial services and using it productively and cost efficiently. The one caution I think that these businesses are mindful of is this idea of regulation and whether it's the privacy risks that come with that. So it's important as these institutions implement these solutions that they also give due consideration to the regulator and to the ability to audit the various models. Thank you.
I think that's really well put, and I'm getting eyes on watching my time. So if anybody has any parting shots, please do share. Let's take an extra minute or two.
Okay, so
use all of us.
I think I like the conversation we had before we came here with Ibrahim as well. So I'll not really go into AI so much, because what we said is you just need to understand your data set structures so that you see how you're going to leverage AI, but it's a tool that is there. My parting shot is I just want to share, there is something I came across around innovation, and maybe just share with the audience. I met this lady, and what she was saying is taxis don't like Uber, banks don't like Bitcoin, hotels don't like Airbnb, cinemas don't like Netflix, 9 to 5 don't like remote work, publishers don't like ebooks, retail stores don't like e-commerce, television networks don't like YouTube, traditional businesses don't like work from home, private executive suites don't like co-working spaces, university and colleges don't like e-learning websites, professors and lecturers don't like independent coaches, etc., right? And the point here was innovation isn't always liked. And let's learn, let's adapt, and then let's play. And pretty much this is what we do as MDP, Masria Digital Payments. We just try to learn. We want to adapt to the environment, and then eventually we apply the contextualized information that we have. Thank you.